Yay! Another roguelite! If your game isn't procedurally generated these days, then you're not with the program. And it's tough after Hades. The bar has been set high. So, along comes Skul the Hero Slayer, joining the group like a new pop-up artisan burger joint, offering you Japanese corn-fed beef patties on a piece of Welsh slate, in a brioche bun, and serving Argentine beer whilst playing you full Bob Dylan albums, on vinyl of course. Just like a few years ago when burgers became artisan, roguelites are everywhere at the minute, and there's no sign of let-up. Don't worry, I am here to help you know which way go and which way not to go. Skul is a pixel art 2D platform roguelite. The graphics and the way the text scrolls one generated letter at a time is very much like an old Nintendo Entertainment System or Sega game. The whole look of the game is retro styled and has an early Zelda feel to it. The usual roguelite elements are here: you die, lots, and you keep nothing with you, except for small incremental trait improvements, which you can split into 3 options: magical attack, melee attack, and critical damage chance. Gradually, a combination of mastering the attack styles of enemies and the compound difference of these incremental trait advances starts to pay off, and you can go further, do more, and so the game scales. The premise is that the heroes of the world have united to finally conquer the Demon Kingdom and have imprisoned the Demon King, defeating and capturing a host of monsters and wraiths of the underworld in the process. All except you, that is. You are Skul, the tiny skeleton sent on a final, desperate mission to expel the heroes and rescue the Demon King. You do so by journeying through random number-generated rooms that you have some control over. Before entering each room, you are sometimes presented with a choice of 2 doors that will deliver you either a skull, some money, or a power-up item. And you can get that reward when you clear the room full of enemies, but the level of the reward, common, rare, unique, and legendary, is randomized. There's also a blank room, which is simply a random pick of any of those types of rooms. This allows you to somewhat control the reward you get in each room throughout your run. And throughout the levels, there are also shop doors to pass through that offer you the chance to spend money on a variety of similar RNG items in each of the same categories. And occasionally, a free skull is offered to you. You also have the end-of-level doors, marked in red, where you fight mini-bosses in the shape of caped heroes, or one of 6 end-of-section bosses, one of whom has a striking resemblance to Dr. Robotnik, I'm sure. So far, everything is pretty standard stuff for a roguelite, and it's done well, but nothing special. The trick, and the difficult bit, of making a successful roguelite is to avoid the improvement seeming like too much of a grind. There's nothing worse than being thrown back to the beginning of the game for the 80th time and hating the idea of having to do those rote early levels yet again. One of our developer podcast guests recently described a light bulb moment for him. It was understanding what the central appeal or mechanic of your game was, and to not limit it from players, but to give lots of it to the player. That, after all, is why they are playing the game. So, a roguelite has to constantly offer you demonstrable character improvement to keep the player in that feeling of, this time I know I can get further, this time I know I can do it, one more go. So how does Skul do at this? Well, there are some things that let it down. Whilst the rooms are procedurally generated, the enemies within rooms are not RNG. They are the same ones in the same place, following the same movement each time, and there is a limited variety in these rooms, particularly in the early levels. There could, and should, have been more on offer here, to make replaying them seem less like a pointless grind in getting to whichever level you're currently powered. The other problem is that in the early stages of the game, progress is very slow, and difficulty is punishingly hard. The same is true at the very end. You can easily die 50 or 60 times in the early parts of the game with seemingly little progress beyond the early sections, and scant character trait improvement, or so it seems. These issues could cripple Skul, but they don't. Because what lifts Skul the Hero Slayer out of what would have been a mediocre entry to the genre at best is an amazing mechanic that is the core attraction of the game. The ability to swap your Skul and pick up another with radically different merits and powers. There are about 35 base Skuls in the game, but you can only use 2 at any time, so there are choices to be made. Each Skul will be focused on either speed, physical attack, magical attack, or be a balanced Skul with each of these elements. Within that, there are also different tiers of Skul that give your play a different level of deadliness in attack and variety. There are common Skuls, rare ones, unique ones, and legendary ones. These can and do pair with increasingly powerful items that you pick up that complement characteristics of speed, power, balance, etc. The right combination of Skul and items can result in your character becoming a devastating whirlwind of retribution on the heroes invading your land. Oh yes, and if the difficulty is too hard, there's a rookie setting that halves incoming damage, which 20% of players have chosen to switch on. Oof, this is clearly a tough game then. At first, it might feel as though you're at the mercy of getting an early, unique or legendary Skul to have any hope of progress. But as your character traits improve with each run, so the common Skul become very playable. Both the common and the rare Skuls can be upgraded to be as powerful as legendary ones. This means that not only are there a vast range of playstyles open to you with these RNG Skul drops, but as your character levels in ability, you can use almost any of them effectively, increasing the enormously different experience of playtime for each one. Perfecting these Skuls and settling on a preferred playstyle is fun, and you can very much single-mindedly focus on this from a restart. For example, keep only physical Skul and always choose to buy or pick up the physical upgrades. You can also crush all of the other Skuls found into bones to use as currency to upgrade your Skul. Make these decisions early on and stick to them based upon the first Skuls you're given, and you can rapidly compete with a legendary Skul. You need not wait on the RNG to gift you one. This is only really possible when you have enough compound trait progression, though. This bewildering choice of gameplay styles and power-ups makes the early rooms playable on a repeat basis, because you are forced to learn so many different playstyles. Hitting from distance, melee, special moves that are directionally dependent, ones that aren't, the list goes on. They're all dependent on the Skuls dropped for you in the early rounds. Now, games do not usually make you learn more than 1 or 2 playstyles, stealth or full frontal attacks, those sorts of things. But here, there's a vast array of combinations and changes. If you upgrade, remember, you can only ever hold 2 Skuls at a time. This semi-forced variety is a magical mechanic to the game that takes some learning but is richly rewarding and will keep you in the game for some time. All of this combines to produce amazing combat that you can easily control and master to clear dozens of enemies from different directions with wonderfully satisfying and increasingly powerful attacks and combos. It is something that looks like chaotic luck, but isn't. You will probably get about 40 hours out of Skul the Hero Slayer, and it's worth every single penny of a relatively cheap price point. This isn't a perfect roguelite, but it is a good one, with a marvellous core mechanic that defines the game and lifts it beyond the small problems it has. Being the bad guy has never been so much fun. Now, go and pick up a Royale with cheese and get slaying some heroes.
Don't forget to give us a thumbs up for this video, and if you want to be the first to see our new stuff, then subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications.